American workers have a level playing field, they cannot be beaten. They have not had a level playing field in a long time. Around the world, the Made in America label is the gold standard for craftsmanship, quality, and artistry. And that is one more reason why we have to protect it. I mean, we have to protect it.
Welcome back to After the Assignment. I'm Vladimir Duthier. Buy American and hire American remains a top priority for the Trump administration, especially when it comes to the auto industry. But before automakers can create jobs, they have to expand factories. And a CBS News investigation found much of that expansion is being done by foreign workers, mainly from Eastern Europe. Many are entering the United States on a non-immigrant visa for tourism and business known as a B1, B2. I spoke with Kathleen Karen, an expert on those visas. Kathleen is a founder and executive director of Justice in Motion, a nonprofit that pushes for transparency of non-immigrant visas. What is a B1 visa?
A B1 visa is a business visitor visa. So there's about 40,000 brought in each year. The biggest country of origin is Philippines, but it's often in combination with the B2 visa, which is a tourist visa. So the true numbers we do not know because there's about 7 million B1, B2 visas issued that are a combination of business visitors and tourist visas.
So you say that they're often issued in conjunction with the B2 visa. So you get one and you get the other.
Correct. So often business visitors will add some tourism to their trip, so it's a very common addition. But what it means is it obscures the true numbers of business visitors to the country every year.
What kind of work would you be allowed to do on this visa?
They're business-related activities. So, for example, you can be a trainer. You could be training U.S. workers. You could be supervising U.S. workers for a particular job. You can also be a skilled worker coming in to do a business transaction or execute a contract for your foreign company. But you're employed by the foreign company and you're paid in the wages from your foreign company.
So one of the things, Kathleen, that people are going to say, I think, when they see this report is American workers are losing out. These jobs can go to Americans, but they're going to these Eastern Europeans or other people that are coming in to work in these plants. What do you say to that?
Well, U.S. workers aren't given an opportunity to get those jobs. The reason is with the non-immigrant visas, there's only very few visas that require the companies to look for U.S. workers first.
So they don't even have to look for U.S. workers.
Correct. So the U.S. workers that are local might not have any idea that these opportunities are even available to them.
How many of our politicians are aware of what appears to be at least some level of abuse of this system?
There's very little known about how the B1 visa is used. So I would say there's very little knowledge about it, and there's a real need for transparency. And it's not just the B1 visa. There's lots of different categories. And what you see, the abuse of it is that U.S. employers moving between the different categories to avoid higher paying the visas that are more complicated to get for a workforce. So there's a lot of flexibility in there that could be fraudulent. And it really comes down to the benevolence of the employer. If it's a good employer who's going to follow the rules, it will be fine. But if you have an employer that's looking to cut corners and to save costs, using these non-immigrant visas, especially the non-formal ones, it's an excellent way to do it. And because of the lack of transparency, you're going to probably get away with it.
That was Kathleen Karen, founder and executive director of Justice in Motion. Our months-long investigation traced the flow of foreign labor from Slovenia to South Carolina. But I could not have done it without the tireless work of my producers, Emily Rand and Rayner Ramirez. Emily and Rayner spent months reporting in Europe and here in the United States to show just how easy it is to import this so-called hidden workforce.
There was Polish and Slovenian and Croatian people there.
What do they do?
Anywhere from steel erection to pipe fitting, to pouring concrete, to installing equipment, just about everything.
The cars will be built by American workers. It's just the building of these plants that's being done by foreign labor.
Exactly, yeah. They come in at groundbreaking, they're done at start of production.
Did you think to yourself that the jobs that these guys were doing could be done by Americans?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The story is about workers who are coming over from Eastern Europe to work in auto factories across the country. So they're not the folks who actually build the cars. They're the guys who come in at groundbreaking and they are gone at the start of production. These are jobs, no question, that Americans could do. These are welders, these are pipe fitters. I mean, these are normal construction jobs. The initial question that I had was, could we prove that these guys were working here? I decided to just take a look at it for a couple of days, and I quickly realized that there was so much information online that was going to help us.
What we needed to do is prove that these guys were here under B1, B2 visa, and they were not supervisors, as they said they were. And the Snapchat and the Facebook videos provided confirmation that they were actually doing physical work. You're not allowed to do physical work under the B1, B2 as a supervisor.
That was just endless video from inside the plant while they were working, because they want to sort of show off what they're doing to the folks back home. Not just the photos, but just documents and flight manifests and the actual visas they posted. So at one point I just printed out what I had so far and put it up on the wall so I could sort of visualize, well, where did we have the most photos? Where were the most people working and what were they doing in each of those places? And then I kind of got to a point where I had enough stuff that I wanted to figure out, well, where could we go to actually look and see if these guys were really here.
There are several workers who work at this BMW plant that have gathered up in the parking lot awaiting their ride to the plant.
I spent, literally hours sitting outside of plants waiting for these guys to get out of work so I could get a shot of them coming out and follow them to their house to see where they were living and how many other people were there.
We were observing people and, with cameras from far away, and I felt like we weren't getting, we needed to get interactive with them. And so you just start talking to them in various places, in the weirdest places you can imagine, where people would talk to you. Like we watched
like what?
Like the grocery store,
oh, yeah.
to their apartment complexes.
To their apartment complexes.
There's a scene in the piece in which we drive up to a guy who's walking around in the apartment complex, and we're just, hey, how you doing?
What are you doing here?
Volvo.
Oh, what do you do for Volvo?
Paint shop.
Paint shop?
They were actually really, which I did not expect, but very eager to talk to us because for the most part, they don't really interact with anyone who's actually living in Spartanburg or Charleston. We were hoping to track everything to Slovenia eventually because it turned out that 9 of these companies were all in the same town.
So I'm actually here in Slovenia with my crew, and we spent the last couple of days, we're doing a story on Slovenian and Croatian workers.
We had a few things loosely set up when we went over to Slovenia, but mostly we just hoped that these guys were going to be willing to talk to us and explain to us how the system works, and that was a real gamble. But as soon as I first met Stephen Pappas, I was like, oh, this is going to work.
You can come here every year if
Every
you like.
year? Oh,
If
that's
you
so
like, you can come
very
here
kind.
every year.
Stephen Pappas worked for a company called ISM Vuzem, and they worked all over the States. And he had some health problems and decided to no longer work for them anymore. And he came to find out that the company had not been paying his taxes in Croatia. The guys who had kind of gotten out of the game were willing to talk to us about this because they also thought that it would help their fellow workers. When we first got to Slovenia, we went a few different places to meet a few different people with Vlad. And we realized, like, the first interview that we did, everyone was kind of like on edge and really uncomfortable. And then someone said, oh, let's have some of this liqueur, like the local liqueur. And they brought it out.
The local liqueur, by the way, is this beautiful bottle of brandy with the whole pear in it.
And they grow the pear in the bottle.
How do you say cheers in Slovenia?
Na zdravie.
Na zdravie.
Na zdravie.
Cheers.
And they wanted to be hospitable
Yeah.
to Vlad, and
Yeah.
they wanted to welcome him to this country. We'd come all the way from the U.S., and they wanted to welcome him.
We are working so hard, pushing so hard, and they respect us for that, but that's not good for us.
When we talked to guys in Slovenia and in the United States, they all said that if they could make just 15 or 20% more money in Slovenia or Croatia, they would never leave.
Unemployment rate in Slovenia is high, and they just said they needed to make the money. They need to make the money, and they knew that they were grossly underpaid while they were in the US, but they still wanted to make a living.
Everyone's talking about immigration right now, illegal immigration, and you know, the picture that you always see is like people coming in over the wall. What we found working on this story is that the way that people are actually coming in and taking American jobs is a system that our government has set up. And it's been going on for years. And these guys, you know, they aren't coming in over a wall. They're coming in on like Lufthansa. And they're coming and going, and it really is impacting American workers.
BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, Tesla, Volkswagen, and Eisenman declined our request for an interview, but they sent us statements that all said essentially the same thing. Their contractors are legally obligated to comply with all immigration, safety, and employment laws, and any violations are promptly addressed. Eisenman also told us they stopped writing letters to the U.S. consulate on behalf of specific employees' visa requests last summer. Last week, Mercedes said they are investigating our allegations of B-1, B-2 visa abuse and have already banned one subcontractor from the Alabama worksite as a result. As for ISM Vuzem, they told us they were on vacation and will get back to us after the summer.